Hey everyone, and welcome to the Big Girl School Book Club. If you are just joining us, we are reading Picture Perfect Practice by Roberto Valenzuela. And we are already on chapter 4, but if you're just joining us, don't worry about that because you can go out of order and you can always jump back and catch up on anything that you missed by watching the videos on IGTV or on YouTube or in our Facebook group. So I'm posting them multiple places so you can get caught up. They're very quick videos, very quick chapters. The only thing that really takes any time is actually doing the exercises and doing the assignments, which is the important part because that's what's going to help you um, remember and reinforce what he's saying. So I encourage you, don't just watch the video, don't just read the chapter. I grab your camera, your iPhone, whatever you want. You can do these exercises with any camera. So the camera that you have is the camera that you should use because really we're just trying to train our eye to see these things. So we've gone through parallel lines, we've gone through balance, we've gone through geometry so far. So a lot of the times these things will overlap. We'll see it in, we'll see geometry, for instance, in this week's lesson, as well as the symmetry that we're going to talk about. So really it's just to train your eye. That's the whole purpose of this, to help us see things and also to make us more creative, even if we've been doing this a long time and have a really good understanding of our camera. So let's go ahead and jump into the pictures. Now, Roberto in this chapter said that he rarely sees photographers using symmetry in their work. And you know what? I had a hard time really finding photos to use as an example from my pictures. So I found a few that I'm going to show you, and then I also saw some on TV, and I took some pictures of my TV because I thought they were great examples. So let's go ahead and jump right into those. All right, so let's take a look at the first thing he talks about is a vertical line of symmetry. So basically a vertical line of symmetry is where it splits the picture is perpendicular to the horizon. Okay, so we're looking at it straight down the middle. So I found a couple of great examples. This particular picture I took out of my window in Vegas, and so one side is a reflection and one side is actually what you see outside. But what it does is it creates a perfectly symmetrical picture on either side of the frame. So that would be an example of a vertical line of symmetry. Now I was just taking a walk in the woods and I had my camera, and in this particular instance I found this pine cone and I just took the picture, and you can see it kind of cuts the frame right in the middle, and if you look on either side it's pretty equal. It's not like perfectly mirrored, but it's pretty much a vertical line of symmetry. Now he also talks about a horizontal line of symmetry. So, and that's basically where it splits it is parallel with the horizon. So now we're splitting it in the middle this way. Now this is an example from, I was on 30A and I was driving. There's like this really cool kind of inlet that doesn't get a lot of waves and there was no wind. And so basically you can see I've got perfect symmetry on the top and the bottom because the water on the bottom is so still, you're getting a perfect reflection of what is above that. So I thought that was a pretty good example. And then, not that one yet. And then here's another one from Lake Lanier where we live. Just again, the water was pretty still, so you're getting a really great reflection of this beautiful morning right into the water below. So you're getting the horizontal line of symmetry. And if you look in the background, you can actually see a little boat coming through here. So the subject is kind of adding a little bit, takes a little bit of that off, and it's balanced by this little buoy. So those aren't as easy to recognize. So we've got some symmetry here, and then we've got some balance where you've got this buoy and this boat that sort of balance both sides of the picture on the left and the right. So what he'd like you to do is just look around your environment and look for vertical lines of symmetry and horizontal lines of symmetry. And the examples he used were not very difficult. They were backs of chairs, it was siding on the house. You know, don't make it hard. Just start to recognize them. Train your eye to look for these things. And that's what's going to help you when you're actually on a photo shoot or you're on vacation and you're trying to do creative, cool pictures. You're going to be like, you know what? I remember these things that I learned in my book club, and I can start applying them to real life. And that's really the point of all this is you're going to look for simple things to train your eye so that when you get out there and it's really pictures that count, you're going to start to add these principles. You're going to recognize geometry and parallel lines and balance, and you're going to see symmetry, and you're going to really start to see your pictures change for the better. So let me show you one of the examples he used in the book was perfectly, oops, hold on. Let me just get this. So he showed a staircase, and you'll have to get the book for this, but he showed a staircase, and the one staircase, everything in the photo was perfectly cut in half, perfectly equal on both sides. And he said, you know, that felt really posed, really staged. So nothing in the scenery changed, but his subject actually moved off to the side, which gave it a much more photojournalistic feel, a more candid feel. And I felt like this was a great example of that as well. So on the left, and you might recognize this, I used these pictures for geometry, chapter 1. But you notice they also kind of go in symmetry as well. So you've got this triangle that's kind of cutting down the middle, and you cut him right in the middle. And this feels a little bit posed, but you can see when he moves a little over to the left, it feels more candid, more photojournalistic. And so it's still symmetrical. The picture is still cut in half on either side, but he moves a little bit to the left, and it just feels a little bit more natural. So look for ways that you can move your subject around as well. So it's a very short chapter. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's mostly pictures. So it's a really easy chapter. They're easy pictures to recognize, probably hard to find because you might not do it very much. I notice in TV they do it. So I found a couple more. I was watching the Super Bowl, and I'll go ahead and blow this up. This was a commercial for Hulu. If you remember, Tom Brady did this. But look at the way they set up the shot. They're in the tunnel going out to the field. So they have perfect symmetry on both sides of him. And then look the way that his shoulders and his head all fits perfectly in the middle of the frame, and it mirrors each other. So the composition is perfectly symmetrical. And I think if you start to watch TVs and commercials and movies, you'll see this done quite often. Now, they still use a lot of the rule of thirds and things like that, but in many cases, you'll see the symmetry in the center, this center composition coming into play. So start looking for that when you're watching TV. These people are really good at what they do. These directors of photography, that's why they got these jobs. So that's a great place to notice composition because they are masters of it. So I encourage you to do that while you're watching TV. And then you can feel like you're doing something educational and not just wasting your time watching TV. It's the way I justify it. So here I found this. I took this with my iPhone, but this is at the Marriott Marquis downtown Atlanta. And it's a really cool building. They shot the Hunger Games here. But again, you know, lining yourself up so that everything is symmetrical. Left, right is symmetrical. Now notice where last week's lesson comes into play, where if you look at the top here, look at these lines up top. These are parallel lines. And notice the parallel lines are, they're parallel with the frame. They're not like this. They're not like this. They're perfectly lined up with the frame. It would really throw all these repeating lines, all these parallel lines, and the symmetry off if it wasn't perfectly lined with the side of the frame. So that's what last week's lesson was really trying to get you to really look at these parallel lines and make sure they line up with the frame so your eye doesn't get thrown off. So this looks perfectly natural, but if it was leaning one way or more heavy on one side than the other, it would feel really off to your eye. So I had to really search for that picture, but I knew I took it. Now, let's go ahead and look at, here's another example with a person. So this was at a swim meet, and now the background's not perfectly symmetrical, but if you look at him from his head to his back, if you basically split it in half, it's perfectly symmetrical. There's the same amount of space from here to here, from here to here. It's right down the middle. You've got half of his body on this side, half of his body on that side. I came in very close, so his head and back filled the frame, and then the back sort of just falls out and adds to the picture. But you know that he is a swimmer standing on the block getting ready for a race. And the composition and the symmetrical composition play towards the impact of the picture, if that makes sense. And then here's my final example. This was just 3 little flowers, and the way the center one is perfectly in the middle, and then you have equal flowers on either side, creating that symmetry, creating that sense of balance that we talked about in chapter 2, I believe. That's another way to create balance, by keeping it equal. So go ahead, and I'll make these a little bit smaller so you can see them all in one space. But start to notice the symmetry, do the exercise, and then if you can find a shot of your own, post it either on Instagram and hashtag the Big Girl School, or share it with everybody in our Facebook community, the Big Girl School community. And we'd love to feature you as well. So thanks so much, and let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and I'd love it if you'd share this with people if you think they'd be interested. Thanks.